Hello, this is William Brown, and this is 271 Honors Programming Final Project, mainly on inheritance, superclasses, and subclasses. First part of the project is mainly watching the videos from the College Board. The first video was talking about superclasses and subclasses, and it started with a dog uh, example and trying to figure out what they have in common. So they both have a name, age, and weight similarities, but they have different breed properties of each other. Um, and down here, they start talking about how both dogs have similar properties, but they behave differently. Now, what if for one breed I want a certain method for one, and for another one I want a different one? Instead of duplicating the code for a different class, we could create a hierarchy or inheritance. So before they even talk about it, they kind of reference it by talking about the toString method, and that pretty much just prints out the state of an object, pretty much all their instance variables and stuff. Now, then they get into inheritance, which is mainly sharing code between classes, and basically allows one big class full of instance variables and methods, and from that superclass or master class comes with a whole bunch of subclasses that already has its own properties. But if I wanted to change one little thing, I could do that without reduplicating the code. So this is what the flowchart will look like. You will have the main dog class with its name, age, and weight, and then coming off of that would be the different breeds, the Basset Hound and mixed breeds, with their own different instant variables and methods, but still have the same methods and instant variables as dog. Next, they talk about how to create hierarchies with ISA hazard relationships. ISA basically is an example of or a type of a object, and that pretty much represents the lower tier of the hierarchy. So, for example, a Basset Hound is an example of or a type of dog. So that would basically mean it's a lower tier below dog. Has a relationship, contains, has ownership of something, and represents a higher tier of the hierarchy. So that would mean a dog contains a mixed breed, or a dog has ownership of a mixed breed, because dog is higher up in the hierarchy. Next, to get into the benefits of inheritance, it avoids duplicate codes, aka polymorphism, and defines a common protocol for a group of classes. And you're also able to use an array or an array list to create different objects from the same master class, but with different subclasses inside of them. So this is what an example of it will look like. And then summary, inheritance defines common behavior and avoids duplicate code. You're able to manage groups of similar objects very easily. So after that, you have the power up assignment, and my topic was mainly focused on games, different types of games, whether it be video games, physical games, and stuff like that. So my master class is going to be games. It's going to have a whole bunch of strings, has a release date, name, and a creator, and then it's going to branch off to two other subclasses. You have video games with console variable and hours played variable, and then physical games having a minimum and maximum play requirement. Then we get to the subclasses of those subclasses. Starting off with video games, you have arcade and platformer, which each have one unique instance variable between them, a score variable and a level variable. And then with physical games, the two subclasses of those would be sports and board games. So with sports, you're going to have professional level, and board games, you're going to have the average time. Next up is 9.2, inheritance, superclass, and subclasses. Pretty much going over what they talked about in 9.1, but more in detail. They talk about the method super, which forces the default constructor of the previous um, class. So using super with a parameter with parameters inside of them calls the overload constructor, but without any parameters, it will force a default constructor. And can be used in overload constructors, subclasses, superclasses. But if you're going to use this in the constructor, it has to be first. Then it goes into overriding methods, similar to overloaded methods, but it takes the same parameters, same name, but it's in different subclasses. Um, you're also able to use super in order to call the previous method from the previous subclass. Um, so if you wanted to, let's say, edit something from a subclass, you could use the super method to edit the variables from the first subclass, then the subclass above it, and then the entire master class above it. So, for example, the method perform exists both in the superclass and the subclass, and if you use super.perform in the subclass, it will actually call the method perform in the previous class, which will be the superclass. And this does not have to be first in the line. It can be wherever you want in the method, just not in just not anywhere else when using it in the constructor. Then 9.3 was pretty much just a PDF file of an example code. Calling instructor with super requires parameters for the one trying to be called. So if you have multiple overload constructors, you're going to need parameters for the one you're trying to call. For example, the media requires 2 strings for its constructor. So if you're going to use super for that, you're going to need 2 strings as a parameter. Video requires 4, so its super is going to require 4. And then streamer is going to require 6, but since there's no subclasses for streaming, you don't really need to worry about super. And level 3 or level 3 of the hierarchy classes can still call level 1 classes constructor if you use multiple supers. Now we get to the code. So I made 8 different classes. I made a main class. Game is going to be my super class. Video game and physical games are going to be my subclasses. Arcade, platform, sports, and board game are going to be my subclasses for the 2 other subclasses. So let's first start off with game. Game, of course, we're going to have release date, name, creator variables. I also put scanner there for a method. We have our default constructor just filled with unknowns. An overload constructor filled with the release date, name, and creators. Then we have our accessor methods. Get the release date, get name, get creator, just returns those 3. And then we have our show data and 2-string method, basically the same exact thing. So all you need to do is just print out either the object or just object.showData, and it will show the data. And then we have a mutator method called edit. It just changes the variables for this class only. So you can change the name, the release date, and the creator. And that's basically it for the game class. We go to the video game class. The video game constructors both have super in front in them, so that it will call games constructor from here. So video game's default constructor doesn't have any parameters, which will mean that it will call the default constructor for game. It will have obviously unknown variables and 0 variables for its default constructor. But if you put in some variables, it will, if you use super with these variables, it will actually fill in the variable of the super class in front of it. And also to the variables for this class as well. You also got some accessor methods to show data, toString method. It actually uses the super.showData method here to get the data from the superclass, as well as the data for this class, as well as the edit class with the super.edit and the mutator methods for everything else. I also put a string temp down here because whenever you take in a string through scanner and then a integer or variable or a double, and then back to a string, it kind of takes in the tab or the enter button for the next string you do. So I use this temp so that the temp will automatically grab the enter key when going to the next variable. We have visual game, the next extension of game, uh, our default constructor up here, and our overloader constructor with the customizable variables, our accessor methods, our show data methods, and our mutator method, the edit method. And then now we're getting to the subclasses of the subclasses, the third level of the hierarchy. We have arcade extends to video games, so now it's extending an already extended class. We have two constructors here, a default constructor, overload constructor, pretty much the same thing. Accessor method, a toString or show data method, and a mutator method. Same thing with a platformer class. You have the overload constructors, the accessor methods, show data toString methods, and the mutator edit method. And then now we have the subclasses of the physical games. We have sports, same thing, overload methods, accessor methods, show data toString method, and mutator methods. And then we have our board game, which is also an extension of physical game. Our overload constructors, our accessor methods, toString, show data method, and our edit method. Now we get to our last class, the main class, which is where everything is going to be displayed. So I kind of made an array of games, each with one from each subclass. So we have one arcade game, one platformer game, a sports game, and a board game with all its data inside of them. And I have a do while loop. A while loop also kind of works because it's a while true loop. So it will display the data as if it would like to edit any of the games inside of here. And if yes, it will edit the one you want to edit with. And it will print them out again. So let's go on and run this real quick. So as you see, it shows 4 games. You have Pac-Man, Super Mario Bros, Basketball, and Scrabble. Each with the different data. You know, the name, the release date, the creator, the consoles, the hours played, the score, the level, the player requirements, the like professional level, or like the level of kind of like how in sports you have the like the major leagues, you have varsity, JV, that type of stuff, and then you have the average time to complete them. Would you like to edit games? We can edit one. Which one you would like to edit? We can edit the second one. Enter name. Put in Sonic. And release date. I'm putting a random number. I don't know off the top of my head. The creator. Sega. Console. Genesis. Hours played. Put in, I guess, 3. Our level. We can go 8-4, I guess. And it will show the it will show up right here. So we have our created game back here with the added games. You're gonna press no, and that is basically the code. So it basically just stores in a whole bunch of different games into like a little library of an arrays, and yeah, that's basically it.